Good afternoon, everyone. You are in the spotlight with Brian Gardner for this Thursday, November the 12th, 2015. This in the spotlight 411 football blitz show, your weekly football blitz in the spotlight 401 here. This time on Thursday. A little bit of a change, a last minute change. First of all, as I said on Facebook and Twitter, I want to apologize to everybody for making this quick decision. This was a very last minute decision that came down an hour ago. It was brought to my attention that there was no way that we could get this show, the Football Blitz show, off on Friday, meaning tomorrow at 2:00 p.m. Eastern, like planned. As I mentioned on our Tuesday show, our Tuesday primetime show, this potential was there to do this show on Thursday. There was always an idea in my back of my mind that this may have to happen on Thursday. As the day went on, it became more and more clear that it was going to have to happen today. I would have liked to have had more notice, but unfortunately, we had to do it this way. So I apologize to our fans out there that, did not have the chance to adjust or might not be able to join us live here today and watch us live here today because of the last minute notice of the broadcast. But I digress. I do apologize. So us doing this show here, the Football Blitz show here this afternoon, that means there will be no show tomorrow. That also means I'll be doing two shows by myself in one day, which is a little crazy for me. I don't do that often, but so you'll be hearing from me twice today. You got the Football Blitz show here this afternoon, and then tonight we'll have our second primetime show of the week. And it won't be a long one, I'll tell you that, especially in light of these circumstances. So that's what you have on tap. So 2 in the spotlight 411 shows in one day. How can you go wrong? So here we are on this Thursday here, and I actually like this. Like I mentioned this a couple times already. I've always since we made this the Football Blitz, because when we were on Talk Show before we moved to Google Hangouts and on YouTube, this was called In the Spotlight Football Friday, and that meant we have to do it on Friday. Now we did, I think, have one or two occurrences last season where we did it on a day other than Friday. I think that was the week of Thanksgiving. I think the week of Christmas, if I remember correctly. And look, one of the ideas behind making this just the Football Blitz means that we could do this show on some other day that isn't a Friday. And the idea was for me to do it on some other night that is not a Friday, because some other day, I should say, that's not a Friday, because that way because you do have a football game on Thursday night. And while I don't mind, and usually it's not a good football game, while I don't mind talking about it after the fact, and that's usually why, because it isn't necessarily usually a good game, although you had quite a few good games early this season. But I prefer to talk about games before they happen. Like if you're gonna I don't like doing like all the games from the weekend and previewing them and then saying, oh, but last night we started the week off with this game, and I don't know, something about this seems rather inconsistent to me. So I actually I would love to try to do this show every week before the Thursday night football game, if possible. It's not always possible. That's why we haven't done it yet, but this week we get the chance to do it, so that's what we're going to do here today. So, you all know the drill on the Football Blitz. So we always look back at last week's NFL games, look ahead to this week's. Obviously, we'll talk about tonight's Thursday night football game, and there's not a lot to discuss. It's not really a good game. And then, of course, we'll also do a little college football, look at the latest playoff rankings, and, of course, look ahead to what's coming up in college football this weekend, what highlights are going to be at. What kind of games are there as highlights? We'll point them out to you, what you should be watching, all that good stuff. But as always, want to start the show off by reminding you all of how you can interact and contribute to our show. Have your voice heard by emailing us at itspotlight411@gmail.com. You can also follow us and tweet us at itspotlight411, and make sure you use the hashtags, hashtag itspotlight411, hashtag itsfootballblitz, or hashtag its5, of course, its5 to represent our 5th year on the air as a podcast. You can also find us on Facebook. In the Spotlight 411 is what you want to look for, and then like our page. All right. So you got the football show right here, right now. Tonight, again, we will have another show, our usual Thursday night, 8:00 p.m. show, 8:00 p.m. Eastern show here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube. Will be our entertainment show. We'll talk about the box office, some TV and film discussion, entertainment news, all that good stuff. Not going to be a long show at all, but it'll be a show nonetheless. So, double dose of In the Spotlight 411 coming at you here. And right now, here, the Football Blitz, we'll get it going here by, as we really have to. You know, this season, we haven't really had to start with anything, we've always kind of discussed news within, like, talking about games. And, last year when I did this football show, gosh, it felt like every show we were starting off talking about something off the field or some kind of situation, some kind of news story. And this year most of the discussion's been about the games, and that's always a good thing. There's been other stories. We have talked about them, but we never started with them. Well, we have to start with a story here today because of I know that there have been other quarterbacks that have been hurt, other players that have been injured. You talk about Tony Romo, Des Bryant, Ben Roethlisberger, and we talked about those injuries as far as how they impact their respective teams. And I don't want to diminish them in any way. There's been significant injuries, other significant injuries besides the one I'm about to discuss. But to me, it's not so much about the injury, and the injury is significant. It could potentially be serious at some point. And to me, the injury is only one aspect of this. This one particular player is only one aspect of this, because one of the season's ongoing storylines has been revolving around the Indianapolis Colts, who have struggled this season, no doubt about it. Have had problems with the offensive line. Even though their defense is much improved, the offensive line has not done very well. Andrew Luck has already been injured once this year and missed some time. There are also rumors of fractured ribs, which were never confirmed. The team has struggled. They're playing their way through a very difficult portion of the schedule. And, this is why I think this is why we lead with this story, because it's not to diminish any other injury that's happened this year, because there's been plenty of serious injuries, but because of it contributes to an ongoing storyline of what's going on with the Indianapolis Colts. And the long-term effects of this injury, okay, they don't just affect the rest of this season and these playoffs. They could affect things for the Colts next season and even beyond. Okay, this is not. If you've read enough articles about what's going on here, you have to keep in the back of your mind that while Andrew Luck might only miss a month, okay, or maybe a little over, there's a very good chance he might come back this year. That might not be the end of that. Okay, and here's why. It's a lacerated kidney. And you've seen, I'm sure many of you, especially if you're a Colts fan, you probably have read enough about this to know that there's a chance he might need a new kidney. And there's some people that said he won't be fully healed unless he gets a new kidney, and that's probably true. Actually, I think it is true. Meaning, especially in a contact sport, okay? And you look at what's gone on with the Colts this year, with the way the inability to protect Andrew Luck. He went down early in the season for that reason. He injured his shoulder, and then there was talk of fractured ribs, and now here he is with a lacerated kidney. The Colts are going to be facing a devastating decision here, because even if Andrew Luck can come back next month, okay, before the end of the season, and look, but Matt Hasselbeck's a very good quarterback. He held serve while Andrew Luck was out, and the Colts are in a bad division. The Colts are probably still going to make the playoffs. Okay, I think that's a given. The question is this: if you're the Colts, under the circumstances, okay, and just you got to be realistic about this. Do you bring Andrew Luck back this year? Or do you wait till next season and wait and make sure, wait till next season, try to get a better offensive line so you can at least give him better protection when he comes back. And obviously, if there's other issues medically he has to handle, gives him more time to handle them. What is that the safe choice? I think it is. Look, let's be honest here. I mean, I picked the Colts to go to the Super Bowl this year. All right? Let's be honest here for a second. The Colts ain't winning the Super Bowl this year. They're not. They got too many teams in front of them. The Bengals are still unbeaten. The Broncos just lost to these Colts, which is we'll talk about in a moment. The Patriots. You look around these other teams, like there's the Steelers, there's Jets, Bills. I mean, there's teams out there that I think could beat the Colts that you wouldn't even think about. And let's say by some chance they did get to the Super Bowl, they're probably going to face an NFC team. Another NFC team, another team from the NFC that is going to be a good team. I mean, I just don't think it's worth the risk. This is a serious situation. First of all, he's your franchise quarterback. You got the contract to think about, but you got him as more importantly than anything else, you have him as a person to think about. This is a lacerated kidney. There's talk that he won't be fully healed until he gets a new kidney. You have an offensive line that can't protect him. I don't think you can run this risk of bringing him back out there. Not yet, anyway. I just think it's too dangerous. And what does this mean for the Colts? Well, again, I still feel like they're going to make the playoffs with Matt Hasselbeck quarterbacking them. But let's say they fall completely off the rails. When Matt Hasselbeck at the quarterback position, they fall off the rails and they don't make the playoffs. Now, how do you judge this team? You obviously knew there was a problem with the offensive line, so you know that has to be addressed. But how do you judge this team from a coaching standpoint? How do you judge Chuck Pagano? How do you judge the rest of that staff? Because the last game you had with Andrew Luck, they beat an unbeaten Denver Broncos team. It was the high point of their season. They went from the high point of their season to devastation. For some people, it's like, well, wait a minute. Maybe they were turning a corner. Maybe this Denver game was turning a corner. They played great in Carolina last week, too. And they played great this week and beat Denver. Maybe they were turning a corner. Maybe this was the start of them becoming what we all thought they could. Even though the offensive line was still an issue, they were kind of working around it and doing a better job. Maybe this was the turning point of their season. And you could say that. The last 2 weeks, they played a lot better. And they beat an unbeaten team. You could say that. But if you're the GM and the owner, and there was already a lot of problems we heard between the GM and the owner, and we already heard that there was a lot. Well, Chuck Pagano was probably on the hot seat because of the way things were going. Whether it's fair or not, he probably was. How do you judge this now? How do you look at this in the offseason? Now, if they run through and they do okay and they make the playoffs, then I don't know if that, it makes it even more difficult to make any significant coaching change because you're gonna be like, you know what? All intents and purposes, you still made the playoffs despite everything. But if they fall apart and they don't make it, which I think is a doubtful thing. But if that's what happens, how do you judge this? Because even if you judge on the games before all this, if you judge on the first 9 weeks of games, which is what a lot of people would probably suggest, the final two games of that 9-game stretch, you played very well. And you beat an unbeaten Denver team. There's going to be people that will say, hey, they were turning a corner. And if Andrew Luck doesn't get hurt, who knows what happens the rest of the season? Who knows what position you get themselves into? Maybe things change, you never know. I don't know how you judge that. I think if they make the playoffs, I think it's a little more easier to look at. Because you're like, you know what? Despite all the adversity, the injuries, and everything, you guys made it. Great for you. But next year, though, we want more. Because, see, regardless of what happens this year, if there is no change, we know there's going to be changes in the offensive line. That's a given. That has to happen. Should have happened before this season. But if the coaching staff, including Chuck Pagano, makes it through this season, okay, next year is their hot sheet. It's a hot seat year. No question about it. Next year, there will be no excuses. It doesn't matter how or why things go off the rails, because they're going to need to do something they're going to have to do something for that fan base. They're going to have to do something for their franchise. Because at some point, again, fairness doesn't always matter here. I don't think Chuck Pagano is a very good head coach. A lot of the coaching staff he has are good coaches. It's not really them. But again, sometimes it doesn't matter. And how long do you wait? That's that again. They're not gonna. I mean, most teams are not gonna. They're not gonna wait that long. You might get a pass for this year. You ain't gonna get two. You ain't gonna get two. It's, again, how does this impact what happens with the Colts and their coaching staff and their future? Andrew Luck, his contract, his long-term health. I mean, there's a lot of things here. And as I mentioned, they had their highest point of the season. They played great in Carolina last week. We even talked about how much better they played last week on the show. They played a great game against Denver. A great game. Came out of the gate strong, scored. Came out of the gate strong, got out to a good lead. Denver came back. They had that play, that return before the half, which that was a mistake on the Colts' part, but they made up for it. They made up for it, and they, it was a pound for pound kind of battle in that second half, and they came up big. They did their thing. The Colts looked like the Colts again. They looked like an elite team in this game. In the previous week in Carolina, I would say too, they looked good. I mean, that's 2 weeks in a row. They look good. Something just turned on. You could tell. You could tell that something was happening. Like there was a difference. And it's a shame that what happened had to happen, but it was a great game by the Indianapolis Colts. A great game by the Indianapolis Colts. 27-24, your final. Manning had a great game. Luck had a great game. Gore was a big factor in this game with his 83 yards. It was a great game. One of the better played games this season, I thought. I mean, again, the Colts got out to a 17-7 lead. Denver with 10 points in the third. But the Colts answered back, and that's the Colts. That's the Colts' way. And the Broncos get knocked off from the round of the unbeatens, and the Colts get a huge, huge win. And now they're one game away from 500. It's a great, great game for the Colts. Again, you go from, pardon me, unfortunate yawn there. Go from the highest point of your season to devastation. That's just, it's just a roller coaster of emotions. That's for sure. That, of course, the Colts Broncos game and everything coming out of the Indianapolis Colts camp is the huge story. But there were other big stories from Sunday. Some big wins, some horrible losses. Let's talk about the big wins first. The Panthers and the Packers, which was probably the second best game of that day, in my mind, as far as being well played. The Packers got a little bit of a lead early. And then the second quarter, which I don't know. I don't even know how to explain that second quarter. 24 points given up by the Packers. And we can all talk about how their defense isn't great, but it ain't that bad. I mean, goodness gracious. And they tried their best in the fourth quarter to get back into it, 15 points there, but it just wasn't enough. Aaron Rodgers had a great game. The offense got back into a bit of a rhythm, but the Panthers, it's not often that you say the Panthers won an offensive kind of explosion kind of game, but that's what they did. 37-29, the Panthers stay unbeaten, and they win this game at home. And look, we saw the Panthers, the last couple of years when they've been this current incarnation of the Panthers, we've seen them score 30 or more points and win these kind of games. It's usually one game a year where they do this, and here it was. I mean, their offense is capable under the right circumstances today against a certain defense, and they exploited the holes, and they kind of beat the Packers at their own game a little bit with offense. And their defense, which is great, and didn't have really a good game this week because the Packers were able to. There were a couple of times when the Packers were able to score way too easily. Nonetheless, when at crunch time, the Panthers made the plays they had to make. Every time you needed a big point on defense, they got it, and that's the Panthers. Wasn't their kind of game, an ugly, defensive, gritty kind of game, but still, again, they won an offensive kind of game, and that's all. Hey, there's going to be time when you have to try to win like that, and they did, and they're capable. Like I said earlier, they do this like once a year to win this kind of game, and here it is. So they go to 8-0. The Packers have dropped 2 in a row. Of course, keep in mind they played 2 straight unbeaten, the Broncos and the Panthers. So, so we lost 2 unbeaten teams over the last couple of weeks. Of course, as I mentioned last week, we talked about the Thursday night game, which is when the Bengals played. The Bengals stayed unbeaten, beating the Browns 31-10. So the Bengals remained unbeaten. Also remaining unbeaten was the Patriots with 27-10 win over the Redskins. Not much of a game. I thought the Redskins would be a little more competitive than they were. They weren't. They're starting to slide a little bit. Ever since that bye week, they haven't played particularly as well as they did before. The Patriots just continue to roll. So, you lose the Packers last week from the unbeaten, you lose the Broncos this week. So you get the Patriots, the Panthers, and the Bengals all stay up. Those 3 teams still unbeaten. So 3 of the unbeaten still left. Now, outside of the unbeatens, that won. What other big wins were there? Well, the Bills got a huge win over the Dolphins, 33-17. I think that officially finishes out the Dolphins. You have to give the Dolphins credit for making the resurgence in the aftermath of all their coaching changes. To be honest, the Dolphins didn't even play that badly in this game since the Bills finally showed that they're better. McCoy had a great game. Like, the Bills finally showed themselves to be what they were in the early part of the season. Tyrod Taylor had a good game, and now they get themselves back to 4-4. And they win a game at home, which what you got to do if you want to be in the mix. And that's what it's a big win for the Bills. Jets play the Jaguars, a game they have to have. A little too close, and probably a lot of Jets fans want, but they win 28-23. And Jaguars defensively can do something. We all know defensively they can hold their own. Actually, they can do more than that. They're a very good defense. Just that they can't score. Well, they were able to do enough against the Jets to keep the game close. But Jets just made the plays they had to make. They get a big win, getting themselves back on track. They're at 5-3, so that's a big win for them, beating a team that they know they should beat. The Giants playing, in reality, what could be a trap game. Tampa was in that game a little bit early, but Giants blew them out. It's not too often this year we've seen the Giants close things out late in games. But they finally were able to do that here. 32-18, the Giants win a big one. They're now 5-4. Buccaneers dropped to 3-5. Their upset bid comes off short. And again, we talked about sometimes these NFC South teams have a tendency to pull off upsets. Usually they do it within their own division, especially on their home turf. But sometimes they've done it outside of the division too. And they played the Giants tough early. And the Buccaneers play everybody tough, but they really did play the Giants tough early. But Giants did handle their business, and that's a huge win for them. people might be wondering why I didn't mention the Eagles and the Cowboys yet. I didn't mention the Eagles and the Cowboys because while that was an overtime game, it was a good game. It wasn't. I didn't think it was as well played as the Broncos Colts game or the Packers and Panthers game. I just didn't think it was. I thought it was kind of like a war of attrition at times. And look, I'd be honest with you, if the Eagles didn't have so many offensive weapons, I think they would have lost this game. I think the Cowboy defense did a very good job. I know that seems weird for me to say in a 33-27 game, but I thought the Cowboy defense did a very, very, very good job. I thought their offense scoring 27 against the Eagles, which again, I think I mentioned this a couple times already. The Eagles get so much gets mentioned about the Eagles offense, but the Eagles defense is very good. All right, they're not like some of these other offensive teams. They actually have a fairly good defense. Their defense was very good in this game, and the Cowboys did a good enough job. Castro had a good game. McFadden had a good game. The Cowboys kept themselves in this. If you're a Dallas fan, I know it sucks right now, but the Cowboy defense has kept them in a lot of games during this stretch, and it did so here. And then their offense even came to play. Just that the Eagles have too many offensive weapons, and that was the difference. So the Eagles win 33-27, get themselves back to 4-4. Cowboys drop to 2-6. And Tony Romo is eligible to come back, I think, the 22nd. I think the idea for the Cowboys was to try to stay as close to 500 as they can. Really, I don't see a way. I mean, the division has stayed there for them. Like the Giants are leading that division at 5-4. So as long as the Giants don't win too many more games, I guess it's possible. But the Cowboys can't afford to lose any more games without Romo. I think, in reality, I think the Cowboys have to win this week. I think they have to win this week. In order for them to have any chance, because obviously they're going to have to win the division. The only for them to have any chance is this division cannot have this division has to stay within the 8-win mark. Okay, the winner cannot be above 8 wins because if it is, I don't think the Cowboys have a chance. I really don't. I don't think there'll be enough time. They played too many good teams. I mean, I just don't think there'd be enough time. So I think the window for the Cowboys with each loss they sustain is getting smaller and smaller. But they played very well, and the Eagles get a big and no shame in that. They played very, very well, even with the Greg Hardy stuff and everything, which we talked about last week. They managed to play well. Just wasn't enough. The Eagles just had too much offense. So a big win for the Eagles. Steelers with a big win. This is a big win that they desperately needed. Roethlisberger. We'll see what happens there. I don't know if he's going to play. He had a great game, 334 yards, 2 TDs. But we'll see what happens. The Steelers, unlike the Cowboys, without Roethlisberger, have won some games, and I think that's simply because of not only who they play, but they're just better built, to sustain an injury to their quarterback. But this is a game that they had to have. The Steelers were struggling. They got it. The Raiders put up a hell of a fight. The Raiders, I have to say, the Raiders have impressed me. They've beaten a couple good teams. They dropped to 4-4 in this loss, but they played the Steelers tough on the road. They only lost by 3, 38-35. They scored 35 points on a Steelers defense that was playing pretty well. I mean, I know they made a couple mistakes here, but they played pretty well. Now, to the Steelers' credit, they played very well against a Raiders defense that's, the Raiders have always been known for their very physical style of play, particularly on defense. And they've had that this year. And the fact that the Steelers did the things that they did on offense against it, that's a good sign for them too. So both teams' offenses responded here, and their defenses weren't that bad despite what the score indicated. Sometimes that happens. People think you see a high-scoring game. Oh, defenses were terrible. Not always. Sometimes it's special teams, and sometimes it's as simple as you're playing against a really good offensive team. I mean, there's a lot of things to take into account, but it's a huge win for the Steelers, a tough loss for the Raiders, and now we kind of transition. We went from all the big wins to all the tough losses. Raiders with a tough loss. Falcons with a devastating loss to the 49ers. And what is going on with the Atlanta Falcons? They went from one of the unbeatens. I mean, they've lost 3 in a row to the bad teams. When you go back to the early part of the season, they lost that game to the Giants. They won that game against the Giants mostly because the Giants gave up the game. 49ers make a change at quarterback, and all of a sudden they look like a different team. Now, granted, their offense didn't look as good this week. They only won this game 17-16. They won this game based on their defense, which has been great all season for the most part, except for here and there. Their defense has been great. And they did that against the Falcons here. They won this home game against the Falcons 17-16 by keeping this a gritty, kind of low-scoring game. And look, anybody that thinks Colin Kaepernick getting his job back at this point now, he's not. Because the 49ers looked a lot better the last couple weeks. And now they're 3-6. So they're kind of trying to salvage their season here a little bit. And the Falcons, look, see, we talked about this. The Falcons and the Bengals are very similar. They've always been similar. They're the fundamentally sound teams. They're cautious. They play it safe. That's the way they've always been. But both teams showed a little bit more aggression this year. More the Bengals and the Falcons. The Bengals have been far more aggressive. Early season, the Falcons were being pretty aggressive as well. But the last couple of weeks, that hasn't happened. And now it's showing in their performance. I mean, the Falcons are still in good shape, but still, it's just remarkable how far they've kind of fallen. And now they're right up there with the Vikings. Speaking of the Vikings, they had a huge win here, 21-18 over the Rams. That's a huge win for the Vikings, obviously, 6-2, and they're unbeaten at home. So they've defended home for fair. And this was an overtime game, although not a well-played one. But and Teddy Bridgewater, of course, got hurt in this game. I think people are saying that he will most likely play this week, and the Vikings need him to play, obviously. And don't look now, but they're right up there with the Packers. They're tied with the Packers for the division. So look how interesting has that gone. But on a negative note, Rams, tough loss. Though still 4-4. Obviously, nobody expected much from the Rams this year, just like the Raiders. The Rams and the Raiders are this year's kind of Cinderellas a little bit. Not much is expected of them, but they're hanging in there. They're playing competitive football. Rams played a good game. The Viking defense just did a good job of keeping them down and just made some plays. That field goal in overtime was the difference. It's tough loss. Got to get back on track this week because the weeks are ticking by. Easily though, the worst loss for a team contending this weekend was the Saints, who had salvaged their season, got back to 500, looking for that win to get over 500. And you're thinking, boy, they get a gift this week. After playing such a tough kind of couple of weeks, they're playing the Titans, the 1-6 Titans, who, despite the fact the last couple of weeks they've had the carrot dangled in front that the Colts aren't playing very well, and they could somehow, we make it look better that they're kind of in this division still, like the Texans are. They haven't played well, and Mariota came back, and that didn't seem to make a difference. And the Saints, we know defensively that they're not good, and so giving up 34 points is not that surprising. But I mean, come on. And I like Marcus Mariota, but the Titans have been bad all season long. I don't understand what I don't understand the Saints. You've turned that corner, you look good the last couple of weeks, and all of a sudden you lay an egg like this against a 1-6 team I mean, it's unbelievable. And Breeze had a good game, 387 yards, 3 TDs. It wasn't a bad offensive performance, and 28 points. To me, I know their defense isn't good, but come on. Come on now. You're playing the Titans. I don't care about – I like Mariota, but come on. And you win this game, lose this game in overtime, and you lose this game at home. You lost 2 games at home, which, the Saints usually don't lose out at home. And now you're back down to 4-5. And look, any chance of the Saints winning the division is gone. I'm sorry. Pacers are still 8. The Pacers are 8-0. Going to week 10. You got 6 weeks left. 6 weeks. 6-7 weeks left. Division's gone. division's gone. That was a tough loss for the Saints. That was their faint hope. Now they got to hope that some of the wild card spots come back down low. And even that's a crapshoot. Like, you know, if you're trying now, I mean, more or less, you're trying to salvage your season at this point. That's a tough loss for the Saints. I mean, nice little win for the Titans. No matter what happened, let's see. They can say they beat the Saints in their building. I think that's mostly. Oh, Monday Night Football, not much of a game. Bears and Chargers. Although, I mean, I should say not much of a game. It was a close game with the Bears winning 22-19. A close. I mean, the Monday Night Football crew must be excited because even when they have a game between two bad teams, they're still getting close games. At least you're getting close games. Look, this is a game between two teams just playing for pride, trying to salvage their season. Neither one's going to make the playoffs, and the Bears win it. And it's a nice little win for the Bears. You know, they're 3-5. Obviously, they hope to get to 500. For the Chargers, it's just another frustrating loss. You know, both these teams been in a lot of close games. Lost some games maybe they shouldn't have. Chargers been every game. You know, last year the Chargers were able to win some of those games. This year they're not, and that's the difference between being 2-7 and maybe being 4-5 or something like that. You know what I mean? It's rough. It's a frustrating season for both these teams, but especially for the Chargers who ended up losing this game too. Cutler had a good game, 345 yards, 2 TDs. It's tough for the Chargers. It's tough for both teams. And the Bears are getting better, and that's something they can build on for next year, you know? Definitely. The Lions, the Chiefs, the Cardinals, the Seahawks, the Ravens, and the Texans all had byes, so that's why I didn't have as many games. So a week of some big wins, a week of some tough losses. And, of course, all highlighted by what's going on with the Colts, especially in light of the big win over the Broncos. The aftermath of that and what's happening with the Colts, that's been obviously it was obviously the central story coming out of the week. So, all right, so that's week 9. Now we look ahead to week 10, which gets underway tonight with the Thursday night football game. And I said in the opening that, you know, it wasn't going to be much of a game. Why? I must have accidentally looked at the week 11 schedule or something because it's actually going to be a pretty good game. You might actually make a pick for it. So I was wrong about that. I must have put up the wrong schedule. I didn't think the Bills and the Jets were playing tonight. I don't know what schedule I'm looking at. But tonight you do have an 8:25 p.m. Eastern game on the NFL Network from the Netherlands. 4-4 Bills, 2-1 on the road at the 5-3 Jets, 3-1 at home. And that's a good game. That's a good game between two teams that are vying for a playoff spot. And it's going to more than likely be through the wild card. Obviously the Jets are already up a game. So if you're the Bills, you're looking to get tie them in the standings here. If the Bills lose this game, and you drop 2 games behind them. So for me, I think it's more of a must-win for the Bills. The Jets lose, and okay, you're still 5-4. The Bills lose, you're 4-5. So to me, that's more of a must-win for the Bills. But it's a monumental game for both teams. And it should be an interesting kind of game. Rex Ryan's already fanning the flames. You know, he's been hyping it all week and taking his little jabs and taking his little digs and, you know, as former team and stuff. So you're going to have that storyline. Rex Ryan, former coach of the Jets, and that'll be a storyline there. And it should be a definite fun game. It's going to be a game of defense. You know, the Jets, of course, I think have played a little bit more consistently on defense. The last maybe month and a half or so, the Bills' defense hasn't been as good. Obviously, the Bills got Tyrod Taylor back. You know, had a much better game last week. Looked like their offense got back on track. So I think the Bills are in a little bit of a better place this week than they were a couple of weeks ago. That will probably make this a close game. A couple of weeks ago, I might not have said that. I might have thought the Jets might win this one easily. I think this will be a close game. I think it'll be a low scoring game. I think it'll be under in the teens, you know, like a 17 kind of 14 kind of thing. But I think it'll be a fun game. You know, Laxter and everything will be a blast. So I look forward to a really, really big game here. And it's going to be our first pick of the week right here because I think this is going to end up being a good game. Like I said, I think the Bills are in a better position right now. The Jets have had a bad spur 2 weeks ago as well. Really, to pick this game, I have to ask myself, which team do I like better? Like, which team did I come into the season liking better, or which team over the course of the season have I liked better? So I think it's the better team. I honestly think it's the Bills. I think they have more offensive weapons. I think the Jets probably have the more consistent defense at this point because for some reason the Bills defense got off the rails last month. But I think that with the Bills, the offensive weapons the Bills have, and if their offense comes back to where it was early in the season, they're the better team. So because of that, I'm going to pick the Bills, especially since I do think they're in a better spot right now. I think they've kind of turned a little bit of a corner, got out of their rut. Jeff Tech, of course, Jeff Tech being my former tech guy from back in our talk show day before we moved here to Google Hangouts on YouTube. As I said, for those that do not know, me and him used to have this thing where we did football picks every week. We compete against each other. So he always sends in his picks for the games that we're going to pick. So he always sends his game. Pretty much he picks all the games because halftime you never know what games I'm going to pick. And then I just take from there. So he has picked the Jets. So Bills for me, Jets for him. And I think that should be a really good game. Let's see what else is on tap here. A lot of mismatched games, big teams between competitive teams and bad teams. Not a whole lot of good games this week, that's for sure. We'll call this game 4 or 5 p.m. Eastern game on Fox from Oakland, California. 6-2 Vikings, 2-2 on the road. 4-4 Raiders, 2-2 at home. Who'd have thought this game would have mattered? But both teams have surprised. The Vikings have been great. Only 2-2 on the road though, but still they've been great. Raiders have been a surprise. They played extremely well. Tough loss last week to the Steelers. You figure the Ravens defense will be on. Vikings have played well on both sides of the ball. Really, what this game comes down to me is Derek Carr. How well does Derek Carr perform? If Derek Carr performs up to what he's done in the wins that the Raiders have had, then I think the Raiders might win this game. If he doesn't, then I think the Vikings win. I think it comes down to Derek Carr. I have to pick an upset here. I haven't been picking too many upsets. Big upsets. I'm going to pick one here. I'm going to pick the Raiders to win this game, especially since it's at home. I'm going to pick the Raiders to win this game. And I just feel good about them right now. The tough loss last week will motivate them. Being at home, Vikings don't play as well away from home. Yeah, I picked the Raiders, and Jeff Tech is picking the Vikings. So there you go. Two really good games. Probably theoretically the only 2 big games of the weekend. Let's pick this one, a rematch of 2 recent Super Bowls. 4:25 p.m. Eastern, CBS from the Netherlands. 8-0 Patriots, 3-0 on the road. At the 5-4 Giants, who are 3-1 at home. Giants have played very well at home. Patriots have played very well on the road. They only played 3 of their 8 games on the road, but nonetheless. Obviously, every time the Patriots have, every time the Patriots, not every time, what am I saying? The last 2 times the Giants have been in the Super Bowl, there we go. They've beaten the Patriots, including the time that the Patriots were trying for perfection. So obviously the Patriots are still looking for some revenge here. They do not want their first loss to come to the Giants again. Giants play very well at home. The Giants are going to be motivated. The crowd's going to be ruckus. Unfortunately, the Giants to me have been way too inconsistent this year. Offensively, I think they're better this year than they were last year. I think it's all come together. But defensively, it's been sometimes a struggle for them. Their pass rush has not been what they needed to be, because that's what their defense always is. It's always about their pass rush. If their pass rush isn't good, then their defense isn't much to sneeze at. So because of that, because their defense has been down, their pass rush hasn't been as good. To me, that's the difference right there. I'm picking the Patriots. It's too inconsistent in a lot of ways, especially on defense. Jeff Tech is going with the Patriots as well. Oh, and by the way, for those wondering, we already made a pick for the Vikings game. Again, as I mentioned earlier, Bridgewater is expected to play, so keep that in mind with that one. 8:30 p.m. Eastern game, Sunday Night Football, NBC from Seattle, Washington. A big, big game. 6-2 Cardinals, 3-1 on the road. 4-4 Seahawks, 2-1 at home. Seahawks coming off a bye, trying to get back in the division race. Cardinals out in front for the second straight year, looking to hold on here. Cardinals have played very well on both sides of football. They had a couple of tough losses. Seahawks have been very up and down this year, very inconsistent, and they've had a couple of tough losses. But this is your Cardinals playing in Seattle, which is always a tough choice. Seattle has lost already once this year, but playing them in that building is very, very rough, and they're a tough team to play anywhere. It's going to be a grittier kind of game. Seattle's going to make it that way. I'll tell you something. If Arizona wins this game, Arizona's winning the division. This is their kind of lock game right here if they can win this game. Because they'd be 3 up in front of Seattle. This is a huge game for the Arizona Cardinals. And it's an equally huge game for Seattle. Now, I like Arizona. I think they played well on both sides of the football. Seahawks, it's all about the defense. Yes, offensively they can be methodical. They can score when they need, when they're able, when they find ways to exploit what you have. They can score. But they're not the kind of team that's going to put on a light show. And they're going to try to keep you from doing that same thing. I think this ends up being a low-scoring affair. And when in doubt, a low-scoring affair always favors Seahawks. And I think coming off a bye, and I actually, as much as I love the Arizona Cardinals, I think they're a very good team. I think they're one of the best teams in the NFL. I have to go with Seattle here because I know this is a must-win for them for the division. This is usually the part of the season, the last couple of years, where they've turned it on and never looked back. You talked about last season, they were down in the dumps, and they turned it on at this point in the season, ran right through everything. The year before that, they dominated the entire season, but they kind of shifted in a different gear the second half of the season. This is the time of year where the Seahawks kind of become the Seahawks, and I expect the same thing to happen here. I'm picking the Seahawks to win this game. Jeff Tech is going to go with the Cardinals. All right, so we picked 4 games, 2 more games to pick. The Monday night game is not really a good one. We'll pick this game because you know what? The Chiefs are capable of keeping it close. 4:25 p.m. Eastern game on CBS from Denver, Colorado. 3-5 Chiefs, 1-3 on the road, 7-1 Broncos, 3-0 at home. Broncos coming off a loss to the Colts on the road. They are unbeaten at home. Chiefs coming off a win last week, trying to get back to 500, trying to stay relevant and in the playoff race. It's a must-win. They cannot afford too many losses here. For Denver, they see this as a must-win because they don't want to drop 2 games in a row. Manning is expected to play despite a foot injury that he sustained last week in the game against the Colts. This game's going to be closer than people think it is because the Chiefs have a good enough defense to keep it close, and they're a good enough team on offense to score enough to keep it close as well. So it's a rivalry game for the AFC West. It always is. It's a fun game. I think the really good competitive game here, but I think the Broncos win this one. Probably in the end, they'll probably win it by a decent margin. I don't think they'll blow the Chiefs out, but I do think it'll be competitive early on, but at the end of it, I think the Chiefs will. I should say the Broncos will. I think the Broncos will get out in front and put it away pretty good. So I'm going with the Broncos, and Jeff Tech is doing that as well. One more game to pick. And that game I'm going to pick. There's not a whole lot of games. So I'm going to pick a game between 2 teams that if you look at their records, you're going to think, what are you doing? 1:00 p.m. Eastern game on Fox from Tampa, Florida. 2-6 Cowboys, 1-2 on the road. 3-5 Buccaneers. 1-3 at home. As I said earlier when we were talking about the Giant Buccaneer game from last weekend, the Buccaneers play everybody tough, and they do pull off upsets, whether it's in their own division or outside of it, especially in their building. And the Cowboys aren't really the Cowboys. This is their last week before Romo gets back or should get back. They're 2-6. It's a big game for them. But we know their injury depleted, and despite the fact they played well the last couple of weeks, they have nothing to show for it. So This should be a competitive game. It wouldn't be if they were the Cowboys were healthy, but it should be a competitive game, especially with the way the Buccaneers play. I could actually see Tampa winning this. I don't think they will. I think that they'll. I think, pardon me, another unfortunate yawn. I apologize. Dallas realizes their backs are against the wall here. They need to start winning games, and this is a game against a team that they should beat, even though the Buccaneers play very, very well and play competitive and everything. This is still a game that the Cowboys should win no matter what. They're just better. Even in their current state, they're supposed to be better. So I'm picking the Cowboys to win this game, knowing the importance of it. And because I think offensively, maybe they found some things last week that should help them in this game. Jeff Tech is picking the Buccaneers. Going for a real upset there. Good for him. He never goes out on a limb. All right, so that's your 6 picks for this week, NFL Week 10. Not too many good games to pick from. So here we go. Your picks 6 challenge. Your NFL picks, myself and Jeff Tech for Week 10. I go with the Bills over the Jets. Jeff Tech the Jets over the Bills. I picked the Raiders over the Vikings. Jeff Tech the Vikings over the Raiders. We both picked the Patriots over the Giants. I picked the Seahawks over the Cardinals over the Seahawks for Jeff Tech. We both picked the Broncos over the Chiefs. Cowboys over Buccaneers for me. Buccaneers over Cowboys for Jeff Tech. Those are our Week 10 NFL picks, our Pick 6 challenge for this week. Next week, well, we'll talk more about next week later. Last week in our picks, how did we do? Because we didn't address that. For Week 9, I went 5-1. Jeff Tech went 3-3. I had the Panthers, the Bills, the Eagles, the Steelers, and the Vikings right. I got the Broncos wrong. Jeff Tech had the Packers, the Bills, the Colts, the Eagles, the Raiders, and the Rams. He only got the Bills, the Colts, and the Eagles right. The other 3 he got wrong. So he went 3-3. I went 5-1. So he had another bad week. Well, 500 is not bad, but I had another good week. He had another bad week compared to how we started. Let me remind you all how we started. Week 1, I was 2-4. He was 3-3. Week 2, I was 2-4. He was 5-1. Then week 3 is when everything turned around. 5-1 for me, 4-2 for him. That's still a good week for him, but turned around for me. After that, I went 4-2 the next week, 3-3 for Jeff Tech. 5-1 the following week, 4-2 for him. Week 6, I went 4-2. He went 1-5. That was his worst week. Week 7, I went 3-3. He went 4-2, so we got a little bit back there. Week 8, (5-1), 2-4. Week 9, I went 5-1. He went 3-3. So right now, where we stand is I'm 35-19. He's 29-25. So I'm up 6 games on him. So I built myself quite a lead here over these last few weeks. He's gonna be kind of disappointed in that, but I really turned things around starting with week 3. So my first couple weeks were very, very rough. But so that's how we did on the picks last week. And again, as we always do, we'll look back at the picks we made for this week on next week's Football Blitz. So along with talking about the games in there and what happened and the highlights and all that good stuff. Outside of the games we made picks for. There are some other games on tap for Week 10. Let me take you through them so you know what they are. 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern game on Fox from Green Bay on Sunday. 1-7 Lions, 0-4 on the road. 6-2 Packers, 4-0 at home. Lions coming off a bye. The Lions are the best 1-7 team I've ever seen. The same team that went to the playoffs last year. It's just they've had some tough losses in the series. The season got away from them. Having said all that, even though the Lions aren't nearly as bad as people make them out to be, the Packers should win this game, especially in light of the fact they just lost 2 games in a row, and now they're back at home where they're unbeaten. This should be an easy win for the Packers. Well, maybe not easy, but it should be a win for them. 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern game on Fox from Nashville, Tennessee. 8-0 Panthers, 3-0 on the road. 2-6 Titans, 0-4 home. Panthers to win this game easily. Although who knows? Titans put off a stunner against the Saints last week, but Panthers, I don't see it, especially with their defense. 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern game on CBS from St. Louis, Missouri. 3-5 Bears, 2-2 on the road. 4-4 Rams, 3-1 at home. This should be a good competitive game. The Rams should win, especially them being back at home here and in light of their tough loss last week, the Rams should win this one, but I think it'll be a close game, and don't be surprised. The Bears are playing better. Don't be surprised if the Bears pull it off. But I like this Rams team. This is a game they probably should win, even if the Bears are better right now. Even if the Bears are playing better than they were early in the season. But you never know. But it should be a game the Rams should win, for sure, in my mind. 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern game on Fox from Landover, Maryland. Saints 4-5, 1-3 on the road, 3-5 Redskins, 3-1 at home. The Saints, as competitive as the Redskins have been this year, surprisingly, they shouldn't win this game. The Saints should, but then again, the Saints should have won last week against the Titans, so who knows? But the fact they lost that game, maybe that was a wake-up call last week for them. You'd hope it would be. You'd hope that their bad play at the beginning of the season would be, but I digress. Saints should win this game, but it could end up being more competitive than you think, and who knows? Especially since the Saints are on the road where they don't usually play as well. So anything's possible. The Saints should win this game. 1 o'clock from Eastern game on CBS from Heinz Field in Pittsburgh, PA. 2-7 Browns, 1-4 on the road, 5-4 Steelers, 3-2 at home. This ain't last year. Even though the Browns at early in the first half of the season had moments where they were competitive and made some had some momentum. This is not last year. The Browns, I don't even think will be in this game. Whether Roethlisberger plays or not is trivial. Pittsburgh should win this game, especially at home. 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern game on CBS from Baltimore, Maryland. 2-6 Jaguars, 0-4 on the road. 2-6 Ravens, 1-2 at home. Ravens should win. They're at home. They're the better team despite their 2-6 record, identical 2-6 record with the Jaguars. The Jaguars defensively can be very good. Ravens, we all know, is very good as well, and they have a better offense. So that, to me, is the difference. Ravens should win this game. Let's see. That one. Mentioned that one. And last but not least, the Monday night game. This coming Monday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, ESPN from Cincinnati, Ohio. 3-5 Texans, 1-3 on the road, 8-0 Bengals, 4-0 at home. Texans only have the record they had because they're in a bad division. Bengals should win this one easily. So my thing is that my belief is that all the unbeatens will more than likely still be unbeaten come the end of this weekend. The Patriots, the Bengals, and the Panthers. I think they should all be still unbeaten after this week. Teams with byes, the Falcons, the Colts, the Chargers, and the 49ers. Colts obviously are very probably happy to have this bye, even despite the win last week, because it gives them a week where they're not playing. That Andrew Luck's not around, so. And the 49ers probably did not want the bye because they've been playing better the last couple of weeks. So that's probably unfortunate for them. But the Falcons and the Chargers, Falcons have had a terrible few weeks. They probably needed the bye, and the Chargers had a terrible season. They're probably waiting for the season to end. So, all right, so those are your teams with byes. And that's your story here for NFL Week 10. So now from the NFL, we go to college football now. And as we look at the latest rankings for college football and what's changed over the week, a lot has. Some huge losses last weekend. Some huge losses last week. Just flipped everything. I'll tell you something. A lot was said the last couple of years about TCU. A lot was said about TCU. Oh, they're being unfair. Last year they should have been, and they probably should have been in it last year. And this year they had the same gripe. Like when the first rankings came out, they're like, wait a minute. Oh gosh, we're at number 7. We should be higher. Well, guess what? You get blown out. Not only do you lose, but you get blown out. You drop all the way down to number 15. So good luck with that. Because that's the end of that. We learned a lot about the playoff picture this week because a lot of the issues, a lot of the board kind of obscure picture was settled now. Because TCU loses, they drop. LSU loses to Alabama, they drop to 9. That was a huge loss for LSU. I thought LSU would win the game. my take on it was maybe Alabama would sneak in if some other teams dropped out, because I thought, I think Alabama obviously, no matter, even with a loss, would stay close. LSU can obviously play their way back in, but they're going to need some help. But nonetheless, a tough loss for LSU. It drops them all the way down to 9. They get jumped by Oklahoma State. They get jumped by Oklahoma State. They get jumped by Stanford. And they get jumped by Iowa. Tough. Florida dropped 1 spot pretty much because of Utah jumping. Michigan State really killed their chances. They dropped all the way down to 13 with their loss. So Michigan State loses, TCU loses, LSU loses. So although LSU could more than likely play their way back into things, it really answers a lot of questions about the playoff picture now. It really does. TCU is pretty much finished. All right. LSU will have to work their way back into the mix. Then you have these teams in Oklahoma State, Stanford, and Baylor, which I don't know if the committee feels strong enough to push them any further than they are unless you get some significant movement in the top 5. Like, and I mean by what I mean is like a onslaught of losses. Like Clemson loses, Alabama loses, Ohio State. Like, you have multiple teams lose and drop. I don't know if any of those other teams, outside of LSU, who we know the committee already likes, will jump up there. I think one thing we can tell is that they do seem to like Iowa because they jumped them up 4 spots. And Iowa right now is a dark horse. I think we can say that now because of how far they jumped. The committee clearly likes them. They see something in them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have jumped them that far. As opposed to, say, moving Baylor up to 5. They kept Baylor right where it is. So you could tell, just like last year, they don't believe in Baylor, just like they didn't believe in TCU. And I don't think they're quite convinced of Stanford and Oklahoma State either yet. I don't see it. I don't see it. Clemson's still in the top spot. Alabama jumps from 4 to 2. I think the one thing we can say right now is this. I mean, Alabama cannot afford a loss. Alabama cannot afford a loss because they've already got 1. So they can't afford a loss. Neither can Notre Dame. But if you've gotten to this point in the season, you're Ohio State and Clemson, and you don't have a loss, I think you're in good shape. I think you're both. I think those 2 spots are cleared. I think those 2 teams are going. I think those 2 teams are locks at this point, with a month left of the season. And then there's the case of LSU. And a lot of people think Oklahoma State's unbeaten and Baylor's unbeaten. Can't they? And Iowa's beaten. Can't they think Iowa can clearly sneak in? The fact that the committee jumped Iowa over Baylor and didn't move Baylor at all tells me that I don't think they believe in them. I don't think they do. And they could have leapfrogged Oklahoma State over at least Stanford. That tells me they don't believe in them either. Like, if LSU comes out there next 2 weeks and has a big win, they're going to jump LSU over both those teams, over all 3 of those teams, Oklahoma State, Stanford, and Baylor. No question about it. Probably even Iowa. Because it's an SEC team, number 1. Number 2, it's LSU, and they were considered probably one of the best teams, if not the best teams, at one point this season. LSU can get back in this thing. If they win out, they can get back in this thing. I think one thing coming out of last weekend, with all the developments, the losses, the big losses, the one thing I think we can say is this. I think Clemson and Ohio State are locks to go to the playoffs. I should say 2 things we can say. Clemson and Ohio State locks to go to the playoffs. And the only teams I can see filling the final 2 spots are Notre Dame, Alabama, Iowa, LSU. Maybe Oklahoma State. Maybe, with some help. That's it. If Oklahoma State loses, they don't have a chance. If Iowa loses, they don't have a chance. If Notre Dame or Alabama loses, they don't have a chance. Because they already got 1 loss. That's the way it's going to work. So the picture, at least as far as who I think is in consideration and who has a legit chance has cleared. You don't think about TCU anymore. You don't think about Michigan State anymore. I don't even think you think about Florida anymore. Baylor, Stanford, Oklahoma State are teams that you look at, but then you think, I don't know if you buy into and you think they're going to need a lot of help. Iowa, of course, is a dark horse. LSU can play their way back in. You got Notre Dame and Alabama right there along with LSU as teams that could make it but can't afford a loss. And you got Ohio State and Clemson as teams that I think are locks. That's your situation. Now, how does that play into this weekend? What's on tap for week 11 of the college football season? What games should you watch and be interested in, especially from a standpoint of what can impact the rankings? Well, not a whole lot. There's not a whole lot on tap. But then again, we didn't think there was a whole lot on tap last week, and look what happened. We had shocking losses all over the place. Not really a major. Well, I won't look at that game. Clemson plays Syracuse. That's not a good game. Alabama, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, CBS from Starkville, Mississippi. Alabama, number 2 Alabama versus number 17 Mississippi State. I'd favor Alabama here, but it is a road test for them in a tough environment. So that's a test game for them. And obviously, like I said, they cannot afford any losses. Let's see who else is getting tested this week. Memphis and Houston, but that I don't think either one's going to factor into the top of the 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Fox. From Stanford, California, 6-3 Oregon taking on number 7 Stanford, who's 8-1. Stanford can't afford a loss. Stanford can't afford another loss if they want to be in consideration. So that's and that's going to be a testament because we all know Oregon's a very good football team. So that's going to be an interesting game. Number 8 o'clock from Eastern game on ABC from Waco, Texas. Number 12 Oklahoma, 8-1 takes on number 6 Baylor at 8-0. That's going to be an interesting game. Obviously, Baylor can't afford any losses. Maybe people think Oklahoma could still sneak in. I don't, but obviously if they were to beat Baylor, that might make a difference. So that's an interesting game to watch. Iowa's taking on Minnesota. That's always a tough game, but they're playing them at home, so I don't think they should have a problem. Utah is taking on Arizona. I don't think they should have a problem with that game either. Arizona is not nearly as good. So those would be the 2 games. There's not a whole lot of games this weekend and across the dial. It's not a whole lot of games. Those are the 2 games. They're both and one from the SEC. Actually, that's the 3 games, I should say. One from the SEC, one from the Pac-12, and one from the Big 12. Those 3 games: Oklahoma, Baylor, Oregon, Stanford, Alabama, Mississippi State. Those 3 games are the 3 games I would seek out because they're the ones that are going to have the most impact on the playoff rankings this week. No doubt about it. So huge. Those 3 games, huge. Not a whole lot of huge games, but 3 on the dial that could have some implications. Again, we all thought last week was going to be a lackluster week, and there were surprises, so you never know. All right, so that's all that's really on the dial here with college football. It was definitely an interesting week last week, and lots of shakeups there. We'll see what happens this coming weekend and what impact the games have on the rankings next week. That should be interesting because now you're heading towards the end here. You're already in the second week of November. And you're starting to look at conference championship games, and you only got a few weeks left here, so it's go time. It really is. All right, as we always do before we wind down on these football blitz. So if we usually look, I keep an eye out for stuff that you all send in either by email, Facebook, or Twitter, questions, or any particular stories that we didn't cover any particular stories or topics we didn't handle during the show. Anything of interest, really. Related to football, I usually try to, address maybe 1 or 2 emails or tweets or comments or whatever. So I'm going to pull a couple of things now. And a lot of people, right? The majority of the mail and stuff this week was about the Colts. So we've already addressed the Colts enough. So I'm not going to address that any further. And I'm not going to mention the Greg Hardy thing because that's been talked about enough as it is too. So let's see here. Question for the NFL. From the NFL. Of the unbeatens, which of the unbeatens do you think will be the last to lose? And do you see any of the current unbeatens going into the playoffs and getting to the Super Bowl, or even winning or even staying unbeaten the entire season? Okay. I think the last unbeaten to lose. I think the last unbeaten to lose will be the Patriots. And I said this at the early part of the season. I said this to my wife. I said I could see the Patriots going to the Super Bowl unbeaten again. Because they got the monumental chip on their shoulder. They played this entire season with a chip on their shoulder. And look, the Bengals are going to lose at some point. The Panthers are going to lose at some point. The Patriots, I think, are the best chance you have at somebody, running the table. And that is possible. I don't think it will happen, but I do think the Patriots will be the last team to lose of the unbeatens. And I honestly would not be the least bit surprised if they run the table, get into the playoffs unbeaten, and get to the Super Bowl unbeaten. I wouldn't be. I'm not saying that I'm picking them to go to the Super Bowl, but I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. With them being perfect, I wouldn't be surprised. Let's see what else is here. I don't want to talk about the Colts again. If the Saints cannot salvage their season, do you think that Sean Payton's on the hot seat, especially with all that he's been through as a head coach? No. Because one of the things people need to remember is this is a very young Saints team. They've committed to these younger players. They know it's going to take a little bit of development. Look, if Sean Payton didn't get fired in the aftermath of the bounty scandal, okay, he's not going to be fired right now. Now, I will say this much. Next season, if things don't improve, if they don't have a winning season next year, I think he could get fired. I was always looking at Sean Payton the same way I looked at Chuck Pagano. I always said, you know what? If things don't get better next season, they get fired. Both of them. So, no, I don't think Sean Payton gets fired off this season no matter what happens. Let's see. Oh, a college football question. If you were on the selection committee for the playoffs, and the season ended today? Okay. What 4 teams would you take as your 4 playoff teams? Well, this is a very easy and a fairly ordinary question. No disrespect, man. I would take Clemson. I would take LSU. I would take Ohio State. The last spot to me is the toughest. I like Notre Dame. I like Iowa. I wouldn't take Alabama. I would lean into right now. I lean in the direction of Notre Dame, but it would be between Notre Dame and Iowa for the last spot right now for me. I'd have to more closely evaluate them, but those would be, call that your 4 teams and an honorable mention. Let's see. Let's see what else is here. Who is your current Heisman Trophy winner? Easy decision. The kid from LSU. What's his name? Fournette. Leonard Fournette. Easy. No question about it. That kid's gonna be an amazing NFL player. Amazing NFL player. Like whoever gets him, if you can pair him up with a decent quarterback, boy, you're gonna be off and running. He is a great NFL. He's gonna be a great player. He's a great football player. No doubt. No doubt. Of all the surprise teams in the NFL this season, which of them do you think has the best chance to make the playoffs? And do you think they actually will? Okay, so we would take into in my mind, surprise teams this year are Raiders, Vikings, who else? Raiders, Vikings. I don't count the Jets and the Bills. I count the Jets. I don't think that nobody's expecting the Jets to be that good. So I put the Jets in there. The Bills people thought could be okay. Let's see. Who else is there as far as surprises go? I think that's it. I think those are the three. Oh, Rams. We'll put the Rams in there. Rams, Vikings, Raiders, or Jets. I think the Jets have the best chance, especially since they already have 5 wins. I mean, a lot will be said about that in tonight's game with the Bills. I think the Jets have the best chance. I do. I think the NFC's got too many teams, so I think it's going to be hard for the Rams. Actually, no, I take that back. The Vikings are the easy choice because look where they are, 6-2 already. The Vikings have the best chance. Outside of that, I think the Jets. Vikings and Jets would be my 2 favorites out of that 4. And I think they both have very good chances, to be honest. I mean, as long as you're over 500 by a couple games, you're in good shape. And they both are. I mean, the Vikings are 4 games over already, so. Let's take 2 more. There was a lot of talk in the Broncos-Colts game about Peyton Manning's future, and it's obviously been a source of discussion for the last couple seasons. In light of the fact that it was looking like he might have retired off of last season, and he's battled a lot of injuries, and it feels like he's cringing every time he gets hit. And it's one injury after the other. Do you really truly believe this will be his last season, or what happened? Or will we see a repeat, of what happened last season, where the retirement is teased and he makes a comeback for one more season? If the Broncos win the Super Bowl this year, I think he's gone. I think he's gone. I think he's in it for one more Super Bowl. I think what happened last season, I think he was retiring last season. I do. I think he was retiring last season, but I think that Elway and company sold him on, okay, we're getting a new head coach. We're going to improve our defense. We're going to make our defense a really good defense, so the pressure's not always on the offense and you. And they did all those things. And they are a better team this year. So they weren't as reliant on him this year, and they still aren't. It's more about him just managing the game. I think because of the way they are now, the way that they're are now, where it's so much the pressure's not on him, I think it makes it more likely that he will come back for another season after this year if he feels like they have a chance. Like if they get to the AFC title game and lose, they get to the Super Bowl and lose, I think he'll come back. If they go to the Super Bowl and win it, I don't think he will because he figures, you know what, it's a perfect way to go out. If they get knocked out early in the playoffs, like the first game they play, because they're going to make the playoffs. I can't say they're not going to make it. But if they get knocked out in the first round of the playoffs, like the first weekend or something, then I could see him saying, you know what, we've done all these things, different things to improve the team, and we're still not, we're knocked out in the first weekend. No, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. So I think if they either win the Super Bowl or they get knocked out early in the playoffs, he's not going to come back. But if they get close, or they even win in the if they get close, or they even end up in the Super Bowl but just don't win it, I think he'll be back. That's my feeling. Okay. Last one we're gonna see here. In light of the 49ers' recent improvement in play since the benching of Colin Kaepernick, do you think that they will stick with Gabbert going further beyond the season? Or do you think that they will go and draft a brand new franchise quarterback and potentially trade Kaepernick in the offseason? Okay, there's a lot of questions there. Let's take one thing at a time. First of all, they only had 2 good weeks, okay? And it's not like Gabbert is that amazing. Like, he wasn't bad last week. This week, it was more of their defense is the reason why they won. He just doesn't make the mistakes that Kaepernick does. That's really the fundamental difference. He doesn't force things to happen. He has better vision, field vision. Okay, he's got better field vision, so that's helping them on its own. Okay, he's keeping the turnovers down and he's not making dumb plays, which Kaepernick was, and that was getting him in a lot of trouble within their games. So that you're alleviating a lot of problems right there. So you compare that with combine that with their defense. The only thing that they're not doing is scoring efficiently. I don't mind Blaine Gabbert. I don't think Blaine Gabbert's a great quarterback. I think he's a serviceable. He's kind of like your backup kind of guy. You know what I mean? He reminds me a lot of like a Colt McCoy or a Matt Castle kind of guy. That's what he kind of is. He can come in. He can fill in for a little bit. He'll play it safe. He won't get you into too much trouble, and that's really all. It's actually a good choice for the 49ers right now because they can work on everything else and then improve on everything else, and then next season go get another quarterback. Because I do not think Colin Kaepernick is going to be back. I know he's got the contract. No, I think they're done with Colin Kaepernick. Not unless somehow they keep him and he shows significant improvement. I think they're done with him. They went with him for a long time, much longer than they probably should have. I think the days of Colin Kaepernick quarterback in the 49ers are done. And I do think they will go out and draft a quarterback. There's nobody they can really trade for. Okay? They're going to draft one. And depending on their record, it'll determine where they're at, and what they do. But yeah, I think they'll go get another quarterback. I don't think Gabbert's the starter of the future or anything. I don't think he's good enough to be. Personally. But no, you'll see Gabbert the rest of the season. They'll probably still keep him on the team as a backup kind of guy. They'll get rid of Kaepernick. Maybe they will trade him. I don't know. They'll go draft a new franchise quarterback and work him into the system. That's what they'll do. That's what I think anyway. All right. So with that, we are done. We've covered everything we need to cover. As always, the show might be over. That does not mean you have to stop interacting, contributing to the show, interacting with us. You can continue to send us your reactions or comments, things we did on the show, things we talked about, things I said, all that good stuff. Feedback, questions about the show and the scheduling of the show. Topic ideas and breaking news items related to anything sports, entertainment, wrestling, whatever. You can send all that to us via email, Facebook, and Twitter. You can email us at itspotlight401@gmail.com. You can follow us and tweet us at itspotlight401. Again, please remember to use the hashtags, hashtag itspotlight401 or hashtag ITS5. Of course, ITS5 It's the hashtag that represents our 5th year on the air as a podcast. So please make sure you use one of those hashtags if you would. You can also find us on Facebook in the Spotlight 411 is what you want to search for, and then like our fan page. You know, I know this was a last-minute show, and again, I do apologize for that. So for those of you that might have came into watching us late, or might not been able to watch this whole episode, or whatever the case may be, if you ever want to catch up on our shows, the only place you can currently do it right now is still Google Hangouts and on YouTube. So go to Google Hangouts, go to YouTube, and just search for In the Spotlight 411, and you will find our channels on both, where you can access any of our episodes from the past couple of weeks since we debuted here on Google Hangouts and YouTube. I think it's like 11 or 12 episodes. And you can watch them, catch up on all of them, or rewatch them, all that kind of stuff, if you wish. And that is the only way you can currently catch up on our show, as far as our more recent episodes from the last few weeks. If you want to catch up on anything outside of the last few weeks, like the last 11 or so episodes, you're gonna have to go to some of our old sites, and those old sites will have us under our own. So maybe you're interested, maybe you're a new fan of the show and you're interested in what we were like before we moved here to Google Hangouts and YouTube. You want to head to talkshoe.com, which is where a majority of our episodes are, libsyn.com, where a majority of our episodes are. Our original episodes, the first 31 episodes ever of our show, are on blogtalkradio.com, and you can also find us on TalkShoe as well. You go to any of those sites to search for us under our old title, In the Spotlight with Brian Gardner, and then you will find those old episodes of our show from the last 5 years, from before our days here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube. So for some new fans, it might be good to get a sense of who we are and what we've been doing over the last couple of years. Or for our fans out there that still are nostalgic and like listening to our old stuff, you can still do that on those pages. I'm in the process of moving everything to one site. I have done that. I'm just waiting for some technical issues with our new host sites to be rectified, so just bear with me on that. I was told it was supposed to be done sometime this week. Whether that means today or tomorrow, I don't know. I was hoping it would be done by today, and it wasn't. So, but as soon as it does get done, you'll be able to access us on Podbean and iTunes as well after we air live here on Google Hangouts and YouTube. So for those of you that like to listen to us instead of watch us, you like audio better than visual, you'll be able to do that on Podbean and on iTunes after we live stream here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube. So I'll keep you all up to date on that process, but we're not there yet. So for right now, you're going to catch up on our shows. We still want shows that we now have here on Google Hangouts and YouTube. The only place you can do that is on Google Hangouts and YouTube, so please keep all that in mind. All right, so we are done for this afternoon. I have another show to do tonight. So for those of you that checked us out live here this afternoon, this Football Blitz show, thank you so much for doing so. And to those that will be watching this later on, either an archive or at some point archive, either on Google Hangouts or YouTube, thank you for watching as usual. We do have one more show today coming up, as I said. Tonight, our usual primetime show, broadcasting and streaming live here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time tonight. Entertainment show, box office discussion, TV and film discussion, entertainment news. There's going to be an all-entertainment show coming at you tonight here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube, broadcasting live at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, and that'll be our third and final show of this week. So we hope to see you. We hope to talk to you and see you all then. So that's it. Thank myself for another great show. Have myself on my back. Thank you to all of you for joining us, whether you're watching this later on or you joined us live here this afternoon. Thank you so much. Thank you for all you do, your feedback, your support and contributions. We really do appreciate it. I hope you all have a great afternoon and early evening, and we'll see you back here tonight for our third and final show of the week, our entertainment show, our usual Thursday night primetime show, broadcasting live and streaming here on Google Hangouts and on YouTube at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time tonight. Until then, see you later, everybody.